Hey guys, it's Adam from LUCIDPIXUL, and only a few days ago, I came up with my full first impression artist review of the 2024 M4 iPad Pro, which you can check out right over here. And even though it's only been a couple of days, I've made some big revelations. I have done a lot of experimenting and a lot of testing, and I've made some pretty big discoveries, and even realized that there's something I said in that original video that I'm going to completely backpedal on. And I'm going to start with that first. Glass versus matte screen protector versus nano texture. In my original video, I said this. While we're on the subject of displays, nano texture. No, don't do it. And the reason I said that was because from the reviews that I'd seen, it was, quote, it quote, diffused the light nicely, slight loss of contrast, but, quote, feels exactly like the standard glass. So I thought, well, to me, I'm very texture sensitive because I'm drawing on this thing. My hand's going to be gliding on this screen all the time. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, I wrote it off. And I said, no, just get yourself a Paperlike or another matte screen protector, whichever one you prefer, and call it a day and save yourself the money. But since then, I've watched numerous, albeit limited number, of artist reviews of the nano texture since. And that includes Brad Colbo, my favorite tech YouTuber for artists on the planet, who just posted it yesterday or today, I think. I'm not sure. Chris Plasek, Bardo Brush, and Let's Draw with BJ Dell. They so far have come out with their nano texture artist review on it. And everyone, save Brad, surprise, surprise, said they preferred the nano texture and even demonstrated the texture differences and the sound differences and the smoothness differences and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, it got me intrigued. And I thought, I'm still within the return window of this. So I want to make sure that I'm getting the best one because this is a professional tool. I use this every day. It is a daily driver. This is an investment for me as a professional tool. So I grabbed Chloe, my daughter Chloe, and we drove over to the Apple store, and I spent 20 minutes with my iPad with my screen protector attached, and Apple had the nano texture and the standard glass sitting side by side. And I grabbed my pencil and I just tested, blended, used a little bit of Procreate, drew on it to test out all these different things. And it became immediately and consistently clear that my personal favorite was the nano texture. And I was kind of scratching my head about that because I've always attributed a pleasant drawing experience to the resistant drag feel you get from a paper-like screen. And for the records, my personal favorite is not this one actually. This is the ESR one. It's pretty good, but it's a little bit too aggressive a texture. My personal favorite is the Paperlike, but Paperlike has not yet. They're not coming out with their matte screen protector for another couple of weeks at least, like mid-June. So it's just not available yet. I do prefer that one because it's the finest texture. But I was scratching my head, asking myself, why do I feel that way? And it wasn't until I got home and I'm sitting here at this very seat where I sit every day to draw. And I'm sitting there and I'm testing the standard glass and I'm testing this and standard glass and testing this. And I'm going, why did I prefer, like I'm saying, that was my brain fooling me. And then I looked over at my Cintiq and I took my pencil and I went, yeah, that's what it is. The paper texture is not what makes the drawing experience pleasant. It's the smooth glide of the pencil and the hand. The fact that you're getting a little bit of feedback and that your hand is gliding smoothly. And on the nano texture, that is a definitive difference. Standard glass is tacky, it sticks. Your pen doesn't hit consistently. You're not getting any kind of texture feedback. So there's no vibration through the pencil. You just feel like you're floating your hand in nowhere, and it just tick, tick, tick. I hated it. But on a Cintiq, that's not the case. It's a smooth surface. So your hand's just gliding really, really smoothly. And there's a little bit of a texture that you can feel vibrate through the pen. It's very subtle, but it's very significant. And the Cintiq is by far my favorite surface to draw on, right? And I realized that's what it is. It's smoothness, not the paper texture, which is also why Paperlike was my favorite one to draw on, because it's got the least aggressive paper texture to it and has the least impact on the image quality. So that night, I went home and I placed my order for the Nano Texture 1 terabyte iPad Pro, and I'm going to be reviewing it and sharing my comparison, my hands-on artist review of that. So subscribe for that because, as Isgrin would say, why not? And I'm going to add You could do worse. Hey, why not? You could do worse. Oh, there's this guy, there's me. I know I'm not the best, but do it. Okay. So there's a second reason why nanotexture is better. You're taking the absolute best tandem OLED screen on the market, and you're slapping a piece of cheap plastic on top of it. It's going to damage image quality. But the nanotexture doesn't do that because it's a professional high quality piece of glass on top of an Apple display. So the image quality difference, if you're actually taking a matte screen protector and you're looking at the nanotexture, it is a night and day difference in terms of image quality and image fidelity. Albeit Paperlike does do a really, really good job, but it's not nanotexture glass. So on all fronts, it was a more professional, higher quality, better feeling, smoother surface to draw on, and I don't have to worry about screen protectors anymore. My only concern, like Brad said, is longevity, right? Is the Apple Pencil over time going to potentially damage the screen? How sensitive is this nanotexture? In my opinion, if the nanotexture can't hold up to long-term usage of the Apple Pencil, then that's something that Apple's very, very accountable for, because their own technology, their own iPad should be able to hold up flawlessly with their own accessories. Okay, which is why I wouldn't recommend on a nanotexture to get like the paper-like metal tip, because that could definitely scratch up a nanotexture. Don't do that. Okay. While we're on the topic, Apple Pencil Pro. This is the new version. They're going to be weaning out the Apple Pencil V2. They have since come up with a non-Pro version, which is the USB-C version. I have quite a few thoughts on this. Number one, the squeeze feature. In my original view, I said none of the apps have come out with the squeeze feature implemented. I'll let you know. Well, what my personal favorite drawing app has come out with the squeeze feature, Art Studio Pro. And let me take a moment, if I can step aside for a moment, to say all of you developers for Art Studio Pro for the iPad deserve a freaking App of the Year award. In my humble, if I could describe Art Studio Pro as an app, it is Photoshop for the iPad on steroids. It is a far superior app than Photoshop. When you really start digging deep into that app, I just keep falling in love with that app over and over again. It's got the best brush engine. It's got every feature you'd ever want and much more that iPad doesn't, that Photoshop doesn't. I absolutely love it. Not to mention, when the M2 iPad Pro came out, that implemented Apple Pencil Hover, which I reviewed over here, within 48 hours, Art Studio Pro had Apple Pencil Hover implemented into the software. Fast forward 2 years, 2024, the M4 iPad Pro comes out. Within 48 hours of the M4 iPad Pro coming out, Art Studio Pro has squeeze, has barrel roll implemented into it. And the other ones are, sometimes they're days, weeks, or months late to the race. They're like dragging behind, panting behind Art Studio Pro. They implemented it perfectly. And I knew right away the tool I wanted to use, the shortcut I wanted to use the squeeze feature for was eyedropper. And it's exactly like I hoped it would be. The only little kind of I had about using it as the eyedropper is I found the squeeze, even without the grip on, was a little bit hard to press. So like I thought to myself, can I adjust the sensitivity of that pinch? Because I felt it was a little bit too much of a pinch. It became a little bit more comfortable just to use the Option key on my keyboard because it's a very quick, responsive thing. Yes, it does. So you go into your iPad settings for your for your Apple Pencil Pro and take the sensitivity, which is set to default, and you move it all the way to the left to the most sensitive. And what that does is it makes the squeeze feature, you don't have to press it that little bit harder. You just go a little gentle squeeze, boop, that's it. So boop, tap, boop, tap, boop, tap. That's how your eyedropping, and it works absolutely perfectly. Love it to death. As far as the double tap feature on this, it's a garbage feature. I either disable it in the app or I put a grip on, and that's it. And when I want to use when I want to open up my quick menu in Art Studio Pro, I set it to double tap on the screen with my finger. So I'll just hold my pencil, I squeeze and I eyedrop like that. And when I want to open up my menu, I just double tap with my pinky. Like that, I open up, I get my features, go back to painting, and I'm good to go. I'm doing a lot with my hand, just with one hand. So they've absolutely implemented it great. Barrel roll. In my last video, somebody had asked me, you forgot to mention barrel roll. I did forget, but it wouldn't have really been much of a viable thing to talk about because Freeform, the Freeform app on Apple, was the only one that actually had it implemented at that point. And Art Studio Pro had it. So I turned it on. see how it works. And I start to draw hard round. Well, there's no point on barrel rolling a hard round because it's a circle, you know? My triangle, I have a triangle brush that I got from Anthony Jones's brush set. And I'm like, no, I don't like that. I can't control the angle. No good. And then I tried it on one of my main brushes that had direction dynamics set to it, which is it'll change its orientation depending on the direction that your brush is going. And that's something I use for blending and painting and stuff like that. And with barrel roll activated, I went, nope, that's not going to work, because the app gets really, really confused between the orientation of the barrel roll and the direction that the pen wants to go with, depending on the direction your brush is going. So basically my pen tip was just going, and I went, okay, never mind, turned it off. So there's only two cases where I think that the barrel roll feature would be very viable for an artist. If you're the type of artist that likes to use angled brushes, like you just take the hard round and you just squish it and you make like a vertical, horizontal, or diagonal one. In this case, you only need to make one flat brush. Make sure that your direction dynamics are turned off. And that way, if I want to get like a thick and thin or thick and thin, just by having my brush oriented in a certain direction, now I can use barrel roll to do that. And I don't have to have 3 or 4 brushes to do that. However, that's a tool that's more often than not used by environment artists when they're doing ground planes and stuff like that. It's not something that I'm going to use a lot for my type of work. So I can't see myself using it, and I would disable it. The second is calligraphy. If you're into nice calligraphy and you like to have your nice thick thin lines, you're going to want to have that pen tip at a certain angle so you can get that nice lettering, and you can keep your pen at a nice consistent angle. There's a lot of apps that are really great for calligraphy. So those are kind of the two use cases where I might find some use out of it, but most of the time it's probably going to be something I'm not going to use. Lastly, I want to mention a thing that I wasn't expecting, wasn't asking for, but have been amazingly impressed with this new M4 iPad Pro base model. The battery life. I know that Apple didn't make any claims. They didn't say that the battery life was going to be better. They said it was the same. It is definitely not the same. The battery life on this thing is mind-blowing. And I'm not kidding. I sat at the kitchen table with my girlfriend for 2 hours drawing. I had VOD video playing, I had music playing on my title playlist, and I was painting in Art Studio Pro, opening up web browsers, doing all kinds of things, just drawing away and listening to different stuff for 2 hours straight. My battery, when I looked at the battery, was at 95%. That's amazing. I'm sorry. And I thought, that's got to be a glitch. No bloody way it's still that high. Yeah, it was completely that high. My M2 iPad Pro definitely would have been down to like 65, 70 at that point. After 2 hours of solid drawing, absolutely. This thing, the battery life on this thing is absolutely mind-blowing. And I think it has a lot to do with just the incredible efficiency of the M4 chip. I think it's just an incredibly efficient chip. So battery life on this thing is absolutely fantastic. And the fact that it never heats up, it's cold to the touch. It can run any app you want on it. It's super, super thin and portable. Whew. Seriously, man, this is not just a spec bump. This is a serious upgrade. But I'm going to keep you posted on that. So hopefully this helped you out with your purchasing decisions. You can check out my original review, as I mentioned before, and stay tuned because I'm going to have the nano texture version coming out in a couple of weeks. And if there's any important updates along the way, I'll make sure to let you know that as well. Sound good? Happy shopping. Take care.